Hey guys, I wanted to take just a few minutes today to talk about this idea of you're making yourself sick, or your stress and anxiety are making your symptoms worse. You're making yourself worse. I hear this all the time from clients who are working with doctors, and they keep coming back to me saying, "You've got to teach me how to stop stressing. You've got to teach me how to stop having so much anxiety. My doctor said I'm making myself sick." And I just want to say, first of all, there is nothing more unhelpful than to hear you're doing this to yourself. Your stress levels, your anxiety are making yourself sick. It's so unhelpful. There's nothing in there that's going to inspire meaningful, sustainable change. So let's look at, first of all, why it's not even true that your stress and your anxious thinking are making yourself sick. I think we have heard that for so long that we just don't question it. Like, we just take that as like, that's the truth. It's been handed down from generation to generation, that it's on us to figure out how to not be stressed so that we don't make ourselves sick. But let's take a closer look at that for a second so we can see how absolutely ridiculous that whole concept is. So go back to the very beginning real quick. The nucleus of your dad's sperm and the nucleus of your mom's egg meet. Boom, there's a zygote, this adorable little single-celled organism forming. And then throughout the next 9 months, you form, and then you're a baby. And all this time, from the moment that zygote forms, programming is just simply being added to you. You're not picking it. You're not choosing. You're not picking which DNA you get, whether you get a more anxious sort of nervous system, whether you're not picking anything. Your eye color, your hair color, whether you're freckly, it doesn't matter. You're not choosing. And then once you're born, you're certainly not choosing how well your parents care for you. You're not choosing the types of teachers and interactions you have at preschool and elementary school. You're not choosing whether or not you're in a situation that has bullies, a situation that's stable financially. Literally, from the moment you're conceived through the time you're like 7, 8, 9, all these programs that are added to you unconsciously, unbeknownst to you, well, they're forming this framework, this undetectable, subconscious, pre-conscious framework for how you perceive the world, for how responses come through you, for how the nervous system reacts to certain things. You're not choosing. It's simply program after program after program running, rising through you. And the same thing goes with thoughts. If this undetectable framework that runs at an unconscious or pre-conscious level is always, always guiding perception, guiding whether something looks terrifying or exciting, guiding whether something feels shameful or wonderful. These aren't conscious choices we're making. These are programs running, programs that were formed from the very beginning of that sperm and that egg meeting and really solidifying through that first 7, 8, 9 years of life. So when we claim these as ours, our thoughts, our responses, the way we behave, the way we show up, the way we see the world as ours, well, that's going to hurt by design. We were not designed to identify with these programs, with programming that is running through us. So even let's just take thoughts for a second. Scary thoughts or stressful thoughts or anxious thoughts. You're not choosing them. They're simply arising. And the degree to which you identify with them is also simply arising. It's part of that framework, part of the programming. And if you are like most people, I'm sure your mind is saying, wait, no, I do choose some of my thoughts. I might not choose all of them because I wouldn't choose all the shitty ones for sure. But I definitely choose some. And when I catch the thoughts, I can definitely choose to have a better one. But then how do you choose when it is you're choosing? And if you could stop and pause and choose the better thought, well, why don't you do it every time? Why just sometimes? Do you see how it begins to kind of fall apart? And if you're insistent that you can choose a response, then why not choose the best response every time? And how would you even know what the best response is? So I say all this because it really dissolves that entire absurd concept of you're making yourself sick. Because if you're not choosing that framework that was established long before you were even born, and then that was then solidified through the first 7, 8, 9 years of life, if that is what is guiding the words that come through you, the responses that come through your nervous system, the lens through which you perceive the entire universe, those are all just programs running. How can you be doing anything? You meaning this little story of you being this chooser and this controller and manager of life. How? How are you controlling? How are you managing? Life is arising and life is trustworthy. Whatever this intelligence is, whatever this energy is that precedes form, that precedes the form of thought or programming, whatever it is that precedes life as we see it with our little 5 senses. When we suffer, when it looks really true and rock solid that thoughts and experience belong to us and that we're the managers and controllers of it and that we need to do something about it, we suffer by design because the suffering helps us wake up to who we are, not how can we be a series of programs running that we did not choose, that we're not choosing moment to moment, that are running. I think it's a really cool thing to even start being open to simply noticing. Despite all the programming, despite all of our Western culture and the doctors that say, you're doing this and you've got to fix it. What if we've tried that? I mean, we've tried that for generations. It doesn't work. I think that's why we're in the biggest mental health crisis we've ever been in. We keep turning it back on you. You got to fix this. You got to fix you. You got to fix your thinking. You got to stop being negative. You got to stop being stressed out. But what if you don't need to do any of that? What if instead it's much simpler? What if instead you could just simply notice, oh, that program's running. And what if it's trustworthy? What if it is simply how life is arising in the moment and it is in service of you? And your mind will hate that because minds like to know, pin down, control, and manage. And what I'm suggesting is the opposite. What I'm suggesting is the opposite of control, the opposite of managing, the opposite of trying to manhandle life to go a certain way to get a certain outcome. And I'm not saying that we don't have preferences and heart's desires and all those things. We do. And of course, part of those heart's desires are to be optimally healthy in the body. Of course. But how does that happen? As far as I can see, the body thrives in a space of trust, in a space of openness, in a space of truly being open to seeing that our well-being and our peace and our joy, our imperturbable joy, are never found in identifying as a whole bunch of programs running, a whole bunch of experiences moving through this body system. Yeah, there's going to be some that are comfortable, some that are uncomfortable, some that race through you with intensity, some that flow through. But we suffer when we identify as those programs running. We attach to them and we try to secure ourselves by securing experience. That hurts because we're not our experience. We're something so much greater. So I would just invite you to play with this. See for yourself. Don't give it to your intellect because your intellect will kick this out. Intellects, little conscious minds, they love to be able to pin things down and they like things to stay the same. And I'm asking you to just ever so slightly turn the world right side up for the first time ever and see this through a new lens of what if, beyond the grasp of my intellectual mind, the experience in this exact moment, whatever it is trustworthy and does not need to be different. From that space, you will simply find yourself doing things, saying things, taking things, going to a doctor, not going to a doctor, because you will just be noticing what wants to happen through you, as opposed to how much control your adorable little ego mind wants to have. What if life is incredibly trustworthy? This intelligence that's sort of running the show is so trustworthy. And moment to moment experience is absolutely not on you to control at all, which completely blows out of the water the concept of you're doing this to yourself. It makes no more sense anymore. You're not, because you couldn't, because that illusion of control, well, the control was never there to begin with. Take a step back. Take a step back to who you are, this incredible space of love, this sustainable, infinite aliveness. As you identify more with that and a little bit less with this amazing costume, this human design going through this human experience for 100 years, you'll just naturally settle. Things will naturally become a little bit more relaxed. But in the meantime, when a sensation or an experience of not being relaxed is what is arising, awesome. Have that one. And when an experience of tension or tightness or resistance or anger is happening, so brilliant. Have that. But don't identify as the chooser of it, as the manager and controller of it. Just take one step back. Notice it. Oh, there's a program running. Look at that. Wow. That is a really intense program of whatever it is, anger, shame, jealousy. Okay, let it move through, feel it, not with all the stories, not with all the shoulds and conditioning, just feel the raw sensations of fear, anger, rage, jealousy, shame, whatever it is that wants to move through you. But don't attach yourself to them. You didn't choose any of it. You're not in control of it. And what a gift to be able to let the suffering of identification wake you up. It's all about waking up to something so much greater. I hope this helps. And if nothing else makes sense, please just consider that anything that falls in the under the umbrella of you're doing this to yourself or your stress or your anxiety is causing this, please hold that ever so loosely. And if you can, let it go altogether. You're doing great. Keep going. We're in this together. Thanks, guys. Bye.